Canada will take on Argentina on June 20th in their very first ever Copa America match. So for this special preview, I've brought on TSN's Matthew Scianitti, who is in Atlanta right now with the Canada camp. Matthew, I appreciate the time today. How you doing?
Not too bad. Getting excited. Like, dude, you could feel it around Atlanta. Staying in Argentina's team hotel. I just got a message from my colleague, Daniel Zhikshevsky. I think he's down there right now filming. There's a bit of a commotion right now with the Copa bus for Argentina's outside. They may not be going to training. You can feel it around Atlanta. And I was in Mercedes-Benz Stadium a couple of days ago for the Atlanta United-Houston Dynamo game. That is going to be amazing for this kind of as a stage for this kind of event, dude. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world that I'm going to be a part of this moment. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I've heard Atlanta has been absolutely sensational. Their fan base, they're obviously their stadium is beautiful as well. So it should be a great moment. And also, I wonder if the Argentinian fans are getting a little nervous that Messi hasn't been able to defeat Davies quite yet. I think that's but a little birdie might tell him wasn't in the. It's only in club football, but you know we can only take so much.
It's funny. My TYC, one of the reporters, Gaston Aldul, who everyone would have remembered his interaction with Messi when Wout Weghorst was trying to egg Messi on. Tranquilo. He was at Canada training today. I spoke to him in Qatar. You can tell that it's kind of, from the Argentine perspective, they're as interested as anyone to see what Canada is going to be like. I'm not going to imply that they're nervous, but I think that they're as interested as anyone to see what kind of team they're going to get out of Canada on Thursday.
All right. Well, like I mentioned, you're with the Canada camp right now, so I want to get your impression on the camp. Jesse Marsch has come in. He's played and been a part of these two friendlies right now. There's some pretty good positives to take away, especially from that France match. So what's your impression right now with the camp? Getting to know Jesse, understanding, his tactics, and going into this massive tournament.
It's been a lot of hard work. I mean, a couple of days ago, there's a heat wave right now in Atlanta, and it is not only hot, it's humid, and the sun is unrelenting, and he is working these guys, and not like a taskmaster kind of way, but he's pushing them. And I think that fits with the theme of everything that he has kind of touched upon since he's come on, which is trying to get this team to understand, to get to the level where you want to get to 2026. You have to know how tough this is going to be. And maybe it is the natural evolution that this team has needed. Everything, all the positive, incredible work that John Herbin and his staff did was able to get to this team to a stage and a standard that it hadn't been for over almost two generations, really. But then to see Jesse Marsch come in and say, okay, guys, like you've succeeded and you've accomplished things. But if you want to get to that next level, getting into winning games, getting out of the group, getting into knockout round games, winning international trophies, you're going to have to put the work in, and you can clearly see it. Now, it's only really been 2.5 weeks since Jesse Marsch has come in, and there's already a lot to talk about, given what happened in the Dutch game, given what happened then in the game against the French. Alphonso Davies was named captain, Stefano Stakios, his vice captain. Some of the players that he brought in, what we have seen out of Moise Babito and Derek Cornelius, Max Crépeau, Liam Miller, like there's so much to talk about, and I think it's just indicative of this new regime that's come in that says, we know that there are stars here. We know the names that have really become the core group of this team. But Jesse Marsch is pushing them, and he wants to see what they're made of. And there's no better stage than to see what your team is made of than going up against the World Cup champions and the greatest player of all time. So it feels a lot longer than 2.5 weeks. Been lucky enough to be on the road and in camp with these guys. But Jesse Marsch is clearly very early putting his stamp on this team.
I think Jesse has absolutely hit everything correctly so far from when he's joined with the Canada camp. I think speaking to the media, from what we've heard players speak of him, he seemed like the right man from the job. And I've heard a lot, I interviewed a few different Americans and trying to get their perspective about Jesse, and they felt like, I asked him, are you disappointed that he didn't take over the U.S. job? And they said, not really, just because we didn't think that our pool fit what Jesse Marsch wanted to do, but they all agreed that the Canada pool does. This athletic, young pressing team, I think could really thrive under Jesse Marsch, and I'm excited to see what he could do. In only 2 games, like we said in those 2 friendlies, you could kind of see it already, and you can see some players kind of blossom into Jesse Marsch type guys, which we'll get to. I do want to start with Alphonso Davies though, because you brought him up. It was just named that he was going to be the captain. I've heard a colleague of mine was kind of comparing it to how France gave Mbappe the armband. A lot of the French media thought it was going to be Griezmann, a little more experienced. Just Mbappe's a star guy. That's who they ended up giving it to, maybe to try to get him a little bit more responsibility. Do you think that went into this decision with Alphonso Davies? Do you think it's the fact that Jesse's just like, this is our star player, this is the face of Canadian soccer, I want him to take this opportunity to go into Copa America leading this team? Because Stephen Eustáquio was obviously is the vice captain, was the other big pick. I know a lot of Canadians from who I've talked to wanted to see Steph get it. I was split kind of either way. I do like that. I know that from hearing Davies speak, he wanted this armband. He made it very, very clear. Jesse relied on him. He gave it to him. I want to know what you made of it.
I don't think anything that Jesse Marsch does is by accident. But I also don't think he looks at things as just, well, here is the star player, therefore let's give him the armband. What I have seen out of him, especially as much as he said, listen, it's tough to go up against the Dutch and the French right off the bat, but it's kind of seeing what certain guys are made of. And he gave Alphonso Davies that armband right away. And I noticed, I mentioned this today on SportsCenter, I saw a growth in Alphonso Davies beyond doing media more, being out there more and answering questions and a level of accountability. Wearing the armband is something that is, especially in international soccer, is so sacred and so it's next to a politician, next to like a president or someone who, especially in certain countries, I mean, France maybe is the best example. Like when you wear the armband, you represent the entire country. And Alphonso Davies has had to do that since he was a teenager. And he has had this kind of expectation on his shoulders about what he could do for Canadian soccer, since he was like a young kid from Edmonton, then going to the Vancouver Whitecaps, then going to Bayern Munich. And giving him the armband, I think, is less about Marsch saying, well, I want to, really up your confidence a little bit more. Alphonso Davies does not lack confidence. I think for him, it's you have had to deal with all of this expectation and you can handle it. You play for Bayern Munich. You've won a Champions League. You have done things already for Canada and helped. You look at all the crop of talent, like a lot of these guys are coming in and they're following Alphonso. They were following Alphonso Davies, maybe not in the way that players follow a leader, but certainly his aura, what he brings when he enters a room, you know who Alphonso Davies is. So having the armband now perhaps is an extension of that. I don't know, but I don't think this is just because, arbitrarily or definitively you're the star, so therefore you should get the armband. As for Stephen Eustáquio, yeah, sure, he's vice captain. He won't wear the armband, but this is an important player for this team. I mean, I watched Jesse Marsch almost every training that we're allowed to watch, go up to Steph, talk to Steph, and in a way that's in confidence. Like you can see the trust in the relationship. And it's, I think you couldn't have, maybe in this situation, these are two guys, not polar opposites, but two very different individuals when it comes to professional soccer. Alphonso Davies has been the chosen one for a long time. And he's come in and he's been successful and he's had incredible moments. Stephen Eustáquio has dealt with incredible adversity in his career, and to say nothing of the tragedy that he's dealt with his family over the last number of months. But here's someone who holds himself with such honor and dignity and the way that everyone looks up to him in that team. There is no one who dismisses Stephen Eustáquio. So that mix of the aura, the presence, the talent, all the stuff that Alphonso Davies brings on top of that, professionalism. Not that Davies lacks professionalism, but that it's a different kind of thing with Stephen Eustáquio, having gone through his knee injury in Mexico and then working his way back up to top play football. I think they might be maybe a perfect melding of the two. I don't know, but that relationship now, especially going in a tournament like Copa America, is going to be so key in terms of this overall leadership structure that Jesse Marsch has.
Absolutely. And if you remember the old leadership, the kind of the core four of Hutchinson, Borjan, Vittoria, and Hoylett, who's obviously somewhat still with the team. I mean, he isn't making the Copa America right now, but yeah, you need a pool of leaders. And I'd throw Jonathan David, Crepeau, Johnson in that mix as well. But I think we all knew it was going to come down to Davies and Eustáquio. I agree with everything you said. I'm excited for Alfonso. Like, it's crazy to think that he's 23 years old and he's been around for as long as he has, and this is a huge opportunity. And Jesse Marsch isn't afraid to ask something out of him. I personally didn't know exactly what went through Davies' mind, and I still currently don't. We know he did an interview not that long ago when he said, "I thought I was brought to Bayern to be Robben's replacement." That's a right winger with his left foot. He got put at left back, and he became one of the best left backs in the world. We didn't really see him play left back under John Herdman too much. He had license to go forward, to veer into the midfield as he saw fit. A lot of the times with success, some other times it kind of seemed like we didn't know exactly where we were going to get the best out of Davies. 2 matches so far under Jesse Marsch, 2 very, very similar lineups, just Crepeau and Dane St. Clair switching out for the 2. I want to highlight a couple players just in Jesse's system. I'm assuming right off the bat he's going to go, and you can correct me if you think that you're going to see anything different. I'm assuming he's going to go with the 4-2-2 and the exact same lineup against France. Crepeau will be the keeper. The back 4 will be Johnston, Bombito, Cornelius, Davies, Buchanan, Kone, Eustachio, Liam Miller, and then David Lairn up front. So the players I want to highlight with you is Davies taking on that left back role. Kone asking to do a little bit more on the defensive side of the game. That was a big question mark for me. I think he can play as a 10. I was not so convinced he can maybe drop back and play as a 6. And Liam Miller, who I think is going to thrive under Jesse Marsch right now. We can touch on Bombito and Cornelius as well. That was the duo of center backs I wanted to see. But those other players I think are going to have to absolutely step up. And it looks like they're all kind of tailor-made for this Jesse Marsch system. So is anyone of those players I mentioned that kind of sticks out to you right up the way who's really benefiting from Jesse Marsch?
Liam Miller was, I want to say, a surprise, but when I saw him in the starting lineup, I kind of was like, "Oh, okay, let's see what this was all about." And so everyone's going to replay that kind of moment that he had against France and nearly scoring. But the way he's going to work with Alfonso Davies, if in fact that lineup is what it is, and I don't know if putting Miller in there was somehow a consequence of not necessarily having to fit Richie Larea, because Richie certainly, there's a versatility and a speed to Richie, and we have seen in certain situations Richie and Alfonso overlapping on the left side. But I want to see if Liam Miller's going to get the start. I really want to see if he's going to be the guy who, okay, like, all right, what does he have at this level? I know you have pointed out on your channel, and many have too. Like, he had moments for Preston this year that were like, wow. I've said it over and over again to people about certain moments in his season, but the game he had against Leeds in the holiday period was like, you're looking at a guy who's, that guy could play in the Premier League. So I'm not going to overstate expectations of Liam Miller, but seeing him come in maybe a little bit into his own, he was never going to be perfect, especially when you're playing, 2 of the top 7 nations in the world. But of everything, and I know it wasn't primarily maybe what you were looking at when you were talking about the formation, but I think for the longest time we've talked about the center back pairing with this team. And to see Moise Bombito, who has the size and has the speed, and Derek Cornelius, who, tip your hat to this guy. He has worked his butt off to, from the situation he had with Vancouver, and then playing in Greece, and then going and now playing for Malmo, and being a mainstay in a traditional Swedish powerhouse, and not an easy league to play in. I think if that pairing is hold true during Copa, maybe that's the pairing that we could potentially be looking at, going into maybe not 2026, that's 2 years away, but for the foreseeable future. The interesting thing about the lineup is, and being around Marsch, he keeps talking about 2026 like it's the goal, like that's the point that we're trying to get to. So I wonder if not that he's going to make changes for the sake of making changes solely because he's got the opportunity to see everybody, and this is just a get to know you. I really wonder if he's going to change the lineup sometimes, be a little creative, try different things. I mean, some of the stuff that he did, even going into that those friendlies, opened eyes. But Ismail Kone, if you go back, and my colleagues Kevin Coban and Stephen Caldwell are working on a feature with Dan Ojciechowski just about breaking down Canada's lineup against Argentina. And looking at some of the clips and looking at some of the things that Kone did, so intuitive, like such a smart player, like to know how to let the ball cross his body without having to stop, take a touch, and then have to turn around and pass the ball backwards. He did that to Antoine Griezmann, who, like, not that to be dismissive, but you're talking about a World Cup winning midfielder has been a mainstay in La Liga forever and can run at pace and do things fast and be creative. And you're talking about CanMNT. You're talking about a guy who is one of the best, if not the best, in his position in the world. And Kone, I'm not going to be ridiculous to say Kone bossed them, but Kone held his own. And that pairing of Stefan Eustáquio next to Ismail Kone, for me, is the most important pairing for Canada, especially in this system, because they're the conduit, right? Depending on how Marsch wants Bombito and Cornelius, if they start to press and push forward, that ball is going to go ahead and it's going to go between both Eustáquio and Kone, and then be distributed, whether it's out wide or to Jonathan or up to Jonathan David. That is so important. But I want to touch on Max Crepeau. I did a story on him for SportsCenter because I asked him very matter-of-factly, do you think you did enough in that game against France? And he goes, I only did what I could control. He's very matter-of-fact. But this guy has come back from a broken leg that everybody was talking about for a year after it happened in the MLS Cup final. The disappointment of not being a part of that World Cup squad, and to come in and to make stops on N'Golo Kanté, Marcus Thuram, and Antoine Griezmann all inside 18 minutes, I think really shows that whatever challenge, if there was a challenge that Marsch has put out to him, maybe by playing Dane St. Clair first, I don't know, but him coming into that, it was a cauldron in there. It was loud in Bordeaux. And for him to distinguish himself, man, that speaks to me. That if he doesn't get the start, I'll be surprised. So I look at that lineup that Marsch put out against the French, and knowing the reaction that he got out of them, especially after losing 4-0 to the Dutch, and I say, okay, I'm not going to be outlandish and say, well, these are the guys that could get a result against the World Cup champions. But maybe this is the first lineup that Marsch trusts to work through things, grow together. But to go back to my previous point, who knows? He might tinker with it because, as I said already, his mind is pointed towards 2026. Not that winning now doesn't matter, but clearly Jesse Marsch keeps talking about this plan that he has. And we'll see if that means I'm sticking with this lineup and I want to see how they grow together, or you know what? I don't mind tinkering with it because this tournament, winning in this tournament is important, but not as important as us developing the right way towards our goal in 2026.
I found it interesting because, like, again, I don't know, but the fact that he went 10 of 11 players in back-to-back matches, I don't know, it just kind of tells me I feel like that is going to be the 11 or very, very close to it we're going to see for Argentina and probably Chile. I think Peru, you could maybe see, like, maybe Liam Miller comes out or Richie Larea comes in, like, just like the odd substitution. Just that's kind of where I'm looking at it, but I agree. It's an exciting lineup, and I don't see there's any reason, like you mentioned, Bombito, Cornelius being the center back pairing. They're both. Bombito's young. Cornelius is not that much older. That could definitely be the pairing for 2026. And I think having Davies and Bombito beside Cornelius allows him to play this Jesse Marsch style just a little bit more comfortable, especially with that speed. We've seen what Bombito was clocked in MLS. He's a very fast.
Faster than Alphonso Davies. I told him that. I said, you know that you were clocked faster than Alphonso Davies? And he kind of looked at me and he was like, what are you talking about? So, hey, listen, there are wheels all over the place on this team.
No, it's wild, but that sometimes where we look at Derek Cornelius and with this maybe high line that Jesse wants to play, that's where the question marks come from. And I think just being able to have that speed on both sides makes him a little bit more comfortable. Plus, like I heard Jesse in one of his last podcast that he did with Call It What You Want, he mentioned Bombito and mentioned that he plays in the style that he's used to. So I was always looking at Bombito as next man up to kind of replace Vittoria. So to see him get these opportunities in back-to-back matches, I'm expecting maybe a Cornelius Bombito partnership throughout the tournament. But like you said, who knows? Maybe he decides that he wants to tinker around with it a little bit. But this is a group that I think this Canadian team can get out of, and then we could potentially have a very kind quarterfinal matchup. We are not on the difficult side of the bracket. The other one has got Brazil, Colombia, Uruguay. Like, it is a much more difficult group. So who knows? We could be the dark horses of this tournament. There's a lot at stake here. So before I let you go, Matthew, I guess predictions, what are you expecting? You can give me your overall tournament expectations, what would be successful for you, or you can just give me this Argentina match, whatever you want to do.
So I'll go a few ways here. I'll look at this Argentina match. A part of me feels there's going to be a big moment like there was in the Belgium match, where there's something that decisive that's going to happen. And I'm not implying penalty, free kick, whatever, but it just feels like this team is going to go in there knowing how hard Jesse Marsch has worked them. They're going to go in there and say, we want to show something not only to ourselves but to our new coach that we've bought in. because everything I have seen a team. Listen, if these guys didn't really care about this coach, it is hot here, man. Like, it is so hot. And I watch these guys run, and but be bought in. I think that's going to translate on the pitch. The fact is, they're dealing with the World Cup champions. Not only you're not just dealing with Messi, but you're dealing with Otamendi. You're dealing with Di Maria. You're dealing with McAllister. Both Lautaro Martinez, and if he plays, Lisandro Martinez. So there's so many ways that they can hurt you. But even if it's a loss, if there's a statement that this team makes, especially when you think about, and I might go on a quick rant here, all of us have watched CONCACAF for a long time. We know what CONCACAF is about. CONMEBOL is different. It is a completely different beast. The noise that they're going to deal with, the antics they might have to deal with. These are the World Cup champions. And it's not just, this isn't Argentina for over 30 plus years, feeling like they need to validate themselves with a trophy. They've got 2 trophies, and they will look at Canada and be like, okay, you got something, guess what? So do we. And even if Canada doesn't come away with a win, if they can come away with taking their pound of flesh off of Argentina, and Jesse Marsch talked about it today, like that aggressiveness and really get after Argentina, maybe that's not a win, but it's a sign of progress. I do agree with you. There is a scenario here where Canada can get out of this group, and there's a path to facing Argentina again in the semifinals. I'm going to take it slow, though, because this is the Copa America. This is a beast like Canada hasn't faced before. I look at Peru, a team that is older, a team that perhaps hasn't met expectations in the way that their fans would want. But you take a look at the history, certainly different squads, I know. But the overall culture of this team has been built on. This is a team, I think, 4 of the last 5 Copas, they've gotten at least to the semifinals. That's not a small feat. And then you've got Chile. And yeah, sure, this Chile team is older. But this is still the Chile team, the core of it, that won in 15 and then won in 16. This isn't easy. This isn't a group of death, but this is a group where Canada's going to have to go ahead, and they can't dip their toe in. They're going to have to jump headfirst into all of the passion and intensity that is CONMEBOL. So I'm not going to go ahead and try to play both sides here for you, but I am going to say this: there's a situation where maybe Canada doesn't win a game, or maybe Canada gets a draw. But maybe they learn something about themselves in that emotion, in that intensity, in, as I mentioned to you before, that kind of expectation that Marsch wants them to have. That, we've got to raise our level. If we're playing the top teams, the Netherlands, the French, the World Cup champions, and then we're playing teams that are going to scrap and going to fight us, now we are going to learn what it takes to operate at that level. Or they do win, and it's not that it accelerates the learning, but it proves to Jesse Marsch, this team can handle a little bit more. Maybe I can lean into them a little bit more. Maybe I can expect more out of them when they face the Mexicans and the Americans in those fall windows. So if you're a Canadian soccer fan, take this all in. It doesn't matter. I mean, not that the results don't matter. The results absolutely matter. But take it in, because you're now being introduced to a competition. 2 years ago, you never thought Canada would play it. 4 years ago, we didn't think that this would be possible after a World Cup going to a Copa America. So it's not take what you can get and enjoy the ride. No, this team is growing towards the 2026 World Cup. And Jesse Marsch has come in, and he's demanding a lot of them. And we'll see. We'll see what this team's got. But being around them, I tell you, they don't lack for desire. They don't lack for want. This team wants to do something, because most of all, the one thing, I haven't been around this team for as many years as I have, this team likes playing with each other. And even that, in the context of the history of the Canadian men's team, is something that we should all kind of look at and say, all right, let's see how they define themselves then as a group together.
Feel better? Got that off the chest? Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I want to just add something quickly before we wrap up here. You talked about diving headfirst. Netherlands, France, Argentina is a great way to do it. But I felt when we went into the 2022 World Cup, the excitement was at an all-time high. I wanted results. I think everyone did, because we were just so used to winning and things were going our way. The Belgium match gave us a taste of it, what could have been. And then obviously we didn't pick up a single point. And then, issues happened, and 2023 was one to forget. So it almost felt like a reset. This feels like, honestly, to me, like a brand new opportunity under Jesse Marsch, with, I think, an improved player pool in a tournament that we haven't ever been in, but one that I think we have a much better chance of getting out of the group than the awful, difficult group we were in the World Cup. So I agree. I really want to see this team do something. I hope they can push at least, get a win, 3, 4, maybe 6 points, try to get out of this group. I think it's important, and then like you said, build on it. Don't let it go come and go, because that's kind of what it felt like to me after the last World Cup, and we just ran into a bunch of issues and things weren't going well. And I'm hoping that we can have a performance out of these 3 matches that show we deserve to compete with the likes of these nations, and then build on towards the 2026 World Cup, which we are co-hosting, which is one of the most important moments, I think, in Canadian soccer history that's to come. So
Canadian sports history, like don't undersell it, because I'll fit this in very quickly. What everyone is about to see over the next 2 years may never happen again. Like a home, and maybe in our lifetime, a home World Cup to think about what it's going to be like to lead. Yeah, maybe Alphonso Davies is the captain come 2026 still. What it's going to be like for him to lead the team out against whomever they face at BMO Field. But you want, with all the energy that I saw in Qatar, and it was incredible, especially the Morocco match, you want Canada with the entire nation around it believing. And we saw a little bit of it against Jamaica when they qualified, this kind of like energy of we can do something here. And because when that happens on that kind of stage, it is a statement. It's a statement that you're making to the world. The Canadian women's team knows all about this, winning a gold medal at the Olympics. Like, it matters. Like, it matters. I often say football is the least important, most important thing, but it certainly matters. So, I can't wait, and neither should Canadians, knowing that Alphonso Davies is going to be standing next to Lionel Messi, and they're going to walk out in front of the world to open the oldest continental tournament. Just saying that should give you goosebumps if you're a Canadian soccer fan.
I absolutely agree. Matthew, thank you so much for the time today. I'll link all your work that's to come in the description down below for all the viewers to check out. I appreciate the time, and hopefully talk to you soon.
Cheers.